Hey guys, welcome to Immersion. We're looking at how to make a graphic novel today or a graphic page. If you want to make a novel, you just make lots of similar pages, basically. So the first thing I did, we're going to use AI and Procreate and an iPad, but you can use other things. And you don't have to use AI, but AI does quite a lot of the work for you. So, it divides things up and it gives you good ideas and it does backgrounds really well. So the very first thing I did was ask AI to ChatGPT to write me a story. So AI is much better if you give it some restrictions rather than let it run wild with its crazy hallucinations. Sometimes they're interesting, but generally speaking, they're just not workable as a story. You want something that is successful as a story, so a continual line of events, for example. And if you give it a situation. So what I wanted was a post-apocalyptic scenario where nobody could love anymore because love had been forgotten, and somebody within that environment was able to feel love at last, finally, sort of thing. That was the sort of general theme that I wanted to explore. And it gave me a story which was okay. Was pretty bad, but it was a very short story, so all I did was take that in, copy paste, and then rewrite it in more of a style that would be more suitable to me. I mean, the only way that you'd really get your style is if you completely rewrote it, but we were looking for speed today and something doable in a short space of time. And the reason I'm doing that is because, I have to get my classes out each day. If I was being paid to do something, I'm much more likely to spend much more time on things and to write everything from scratch from my own brain, because your human brain is much better than AI. Anyway, I returned the story after I'd edited it, so my version, and I asked the AI for an illustration, and this is the illustration that it returned to me. So I was quite impressed, actually. AI is getting much better. There were a lot of things I liked, but there were also a lot of things I didn't like. It got the story wrong. It had gone back to its version of the story instead of mine. And I didn't like Echo as a name of the dog. It just didn't fit into the situation. It was a bit cheesy. I thought the drawings were far too cutesy, far too cheesy for me. I wanted something much more raw, something a bit more almost blood-sucking horror movie type illustrations. You know what I mean? That's what I would have done. But I sort of ran with this one. Anyway, I asked the AI to do something that was a little bit more to my liking, and it came up with this. So there are a few things that I preferred about this version. One, it's black and white, and it's much easier to use black and white pens on Procreate. There's obviously less colour matching, and things are, when you're just using these two tonal extremes, it's very easy to get things down quickly, etc., etc. I didn't like the words it had given me, and I wanted to redo all of those. But essentially, I thought, well, do you know what? That's okay, isn't it? If you were just starting out some sort of graphic career where you were illustrating things, a simple illustration that wasn't, adult based, as in, horror and gore, not too comic-y or like the Beano or something, this would be fairly acceptable. Still a bit on the cheesy side, but, for our purposes, I thought, no, that's okay, actually. But because I wasn't happy with the lettering, and I quite like writing the words by hand, I think I would probably do them a little bit neater than the way I did them. Let's go back to my finished, or the process that I used and the completion of it. Because I was, sort of working through at pace, the writing wasn't particularly neat. It would be much neater, I think, if I did this again. But it was a bit of a learning curve, because it's the first time I've ever used AI in any kind of creative storytelling process, visual process. So as you can see, I I changed quite a few kind of words and the meaning behind the words. So I wanted a different sort of mood for things. And I didn't give the dog a name, which I probably would have done that if I was spending a bit more time on it. But he's just called Dog in this. But that's entirely up to you. But the wonderful thing about doing it this way is that, you can just rub it out. And so you'll see as I progress through that there's lots of rubbing out and lots of changes of mind, and the great thing about Procreate is it's fantastic to be able to film it on time lapse, but it's also really, really good to be able to change your mind, with the storytelling as you go along, and what's working with the image, what mood am I trying to get across here? Do I want something sadder? And you'll see it at one point when I'm changing the dog's cutie look to a sort of gnarly look, and I thought, should I do his ears up and pointy? That didn't really work. It's actually much harder to change an AI original than it is to just start from scratch and do your own. I say harder because it's almost impossible to get it exactly right. It's not really quicker to do it yourself. You would take much more time. But you sort of make shortcuts, I think, with AI, and you come to a kind of happy compromise. You think, right, well, that's good enough. That's the best I can do without rubbing out the whole square and starting again completely from scratch. So, I'd done all that, and then I was kind of thinking about the internet and how the internet really does prefer colour. I notice with all my thumbnails, if they're coloured, they will get loads more views. And so at that point I thought, well, I'll give it a go and see what happens if I tint it. So it was fairly straightforward, actually. And what I did, I used a very transparent brush called Wattlebird, I think that's what it's called, on Procreate. And I really quickly just gave bits of it a wash. Not too successful in terms of it did dampen the richness of the black. So then I asked the AI, how can I repeat this sort of style as if I choose this sort of style to carry on with, which I may well do for our workshops at Immersion. How can I get him, because I always call him a him, how can I get him to, repeat this style of imagery? And, because next time I might forget what I told him to do. Do you see what I mean? And so that's when he gave me this prompt card. So if you keep a hold of this prompt card, you can write something very similar or try exactly the same. They won't produce, no two AI efforts produce the same result. So it is a bit hit and miss, I always find. But it'd be really interesting, actually, if you guys can do something like that and then share with me what you produced. I actually really like the artwork on this. It's a bit traditional, it's a bit Hogarthian, I think, but I do quite like it. I think it's got more depth and more passion to it than the stuff that he did for me earlier in the day. Well, it was literally 10 minutes before. That's basically it. So hopefully I've covered everything. We'll be doing lots more of these workshops. I mean, they're great fun, and it's all about a massive learning curve. As artists such as ourselves, try and experiment with what there is and to see if it helps our process or hinders it. And only you can be the judge of your own progress. So welcome to this is the first immersion workshop, actually, in AI and Procreate. I've done loads and loads of music ones if you're interested. So yeah, welcome to the Book of Immersion anyway.